Welcome to Château du Rivo and its fairy tale garden. I'm Caroline and I'm going to show you around and tell you about this beautiful place. So this is the Château du Rivo. It was constructed in 1442 by the Prime Minister of France. At the time you called him the Great Chancellor, Pierre de Beauvau. And it started to be a wooden house that was then fortified. The reason why the prince or the lord got the right to construct this castle is because he helped the King of France to escape from Paris where the English were coming in, and as a reward the king allowed him to fortify his castle. But what Château du Rivo is most famous for is the gardens. So I'll show you the first of our garden is the kitchen garden. September is a unique time to see the garden, and especially the kitchen garden, because all the beautiful plants are blooming. So you see the leeks and the tomatoes. We have different variety of tomatoes. The artichokes that come from Italy, that were brought back as very important men for the French, called Rabelais. He's the personification of the Middle Ages, of the transition from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance area. And he used to live only 10 kilometers away from Château du Rivo. So you see all those beautiful leeks. The way our kitchen garden is organized is there is a relationship between flowers and vegetables, so that the flowers attract the insects that don't go into the vegetables. In Château du Rivo, we are quite famous for the pumpkins. We always call the Château du Rivo a fairy tale castle. And what is the best vegetables for fairy tales? Yes, pumpkins. So we have tons of varieties, maybe 43. So you'll see different types. So white ones. Most of them you can actually eat. This one is really good if you put it just in the oven with some butter. This one is called courge spaghetti. I'm not really sure about the English name. It's when you open it, it's a bit like a spaghetti, and you can just cook it. But it's spaghetti with no gluten, so gluten-free spaghetti. This flower here, you may notice, is a capucine, and they're edible. So they're really nice for decoration and plants. You actually can use also the leaf, which are quite tasty, and they have a bit of an acidity taste. And here you see Dominique, hard at work in trying to make armory for this piece of art. It's a piece of art by Berthelot, and it's a gigantic mole. And it's a bit of a joke because, as you know, in gardens, moles are not the gardener's best friends. And here in Château du Rivo, we have this gigantic bronze mole welcoming the visitor and telling us, okay, I make tunnels, but still I'm part of nature, so here am I. I don't know if you have them in Russia, but we have lots of them in France. So let's continue our little tour. So we have orange trees, and the trees blue. So still some pumpkins. Here we have an interesting one. It's called Blue from Hungary. It's bluish pumpkin, greenish, and it's quite unique. This year the pumpkins are quite small, but some years they can actually grow really, really big. This year temperatures were really, really high in summer, and there was a bit of rain, and also in April, so we don't have that many of them compared to normally. But we have lots of tomatoes, and you see this one is the cornu, which is a oblong shape. This is beetroot, and we work with the region in order to conserve different varieties of beetroots and different vegetables so that biodiversity is preserved. So we collect the seeds and send them out to other gardens so that they can continue this work. Why is it so important? It's important because we can afterwards continue the species. Lots of varieties of plants are disappearing, and it's the same for vegetables. We are only eating the same vegetables and the same plants, but there's an infinity number of varieties, and we are trying not to lose them because it enriches humankind, and we really want to keep them for the future generation. This is a poirée. This is also a very nice vegetable. It's very aesthetic. I forgot to tell you, but we have 2 restaurants in Château de Rivo, and we use all those beautiful vegetables for our gardens, for our restaurants. So we have one restaurant that is over there. If you look around, it's outside in the kitchen garden. It's beautiful. It's very simple food, fresh salads and quiche, and very, very fresh and very simple. But people can enjoy outside. And now we just had opened another restaurant that I'm going to show you that is smaller, more intimate, and quite high-end, with very good wine and a very good chef. So, the tomatoes, here we have green tomatoes and another type of pumpkin. This one is called pumpkin de Touraine. It's actually not edible. It's actually edible, but it's not so good. It's mainly used for cattle. Celery is also part of our conservatory. We give the seeds out to other gardens, and it's originally from the region. So, oh, and this one is really nice. It's the pumpkin that is white. And has a really funky shape. The flat boer, it's called. And over there, if we go inside of the kitchen garden, I have a funky gallo de lime, which with all its, I'm not sure how you call this, but like moles around it. It's edible and it's actually very good. It has a very sugary taste, so you can even use it for cakes. In the kitchen garden and in the garden, we don't use any products that are not organic. So we try to preserve the environment. We're also very careful about the amount of water we use. So we use drips instead of just spraying, so that we conserve water. Environment is a key issue for us. Just a little word about the castle and the architecture. So we are lucky to have an ensemble that is quite formidable, with beautiful portraits from the Middle Ages, from the Middle Ages to the Renaissance. And this royal stables that was constructed by the grandson of the owner of the castle, Gabriel de Beauvau. He was also the owner of, in charge of all the stallions for the King of France, Francis I and Henry II. And those stables are unique in France because they are the only ones that are fortified. So they used to have 3 towers on each side, and now we have a small hotel on top and an exhibit at the bottom about horses and about the stables themselves. And on the right over there we have a barn that now we use for weddings and big parties. We can have up to 300 people in this barn, but it used to be to collect the weed and from for the peasants. So now I'll show you, this is here on this, our concept in the Château de Rivo is always to have contemporary art. So there's a dialogue between contemporary art and medieval art. Why? Because we think that the lords of the Middle Ages, they helped promote the art of their time. And we think it's the role of a castle to promote art and the heart of the time. If we don't start promoting the art of our time, there will be no testimony for the future generation. So it's not for us an opposition between past and future, but it's just a direct link. So we have visitors that come and visit. We have people that stay in the hotel and people that come to the restaurants. Here you have a piece of art by Pierre Rouvin. It's called Again and Again. And it's about the nostalgia of being a kid and how kids want to go forever again and again in the merry-go-round. It works so well that we had to protect it with roses all around, a bit like the Sleeping Beauty, because the kids really wanted to go inside and it was quite dangerous for them. So let us go inside of the castle. I'll show you the new restaurant we have, and then we can go inside of the gardens. On your right, you see the gardeners were at work. We're making a little sculpture. So I guess they're making a man. And behind there is a pedilure. It was used to clean the horses' legs in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance area. So we're going to go through the drawbridge. It's a double drawbridge. Part of it was used for carriage and horses, and the other part was used for pedestrians. Here we have a little welcoming word for the guests, because we are a private castle and we like to show that it's a family-owned castle. So the atmosphere will be a bit more different than a state-owned castle. We really want people to feel welcome. That's why we have them with a little rose showing around. So now we are in the middle of the courtyard of the castle. So this castle, when it was constructed, was actually completely closed. But at the beginning of the Renaissance, it was meant to be a fortification, just so prevent the enemy from coming in. But in the Renaissance, when they did not need the fortification anymore, this part was destroyed, which is a good thing because it was open towards the garden. So now our castle is not obscure and fortress-like, but more like open towards the garden, more like Renaissance. So we have a beautiful view from all the rooms and the halls on the garden, sorry. And what we did over here is that we planted a collection of roses. They are English roses from David Austin. Château du Rivo is very famous for the rose. Obviously, September is not the good season for the roses, but we do have lots of re-blooming roses. And those are David Austin roses, and they're very famous for blooming. So let's go and check them out. You'll see. We are conservatory of the fragrant rose. That means that all of our roses are scented. We pride ourselves in not choosing a rose because it's old or new, but because it's scented. Because we think that a rose that does not smell, that does not give out an odor, is like a person with no soul. It's a bit a shame. And what's wonderful in our garden is that first you smell the roses, you smell the plants, and then you see them. So you're surprised by their beauty after just acknowledging them by smell. It's a great surprise. And you see, even in September, they're quite present. There's lots of them. As you'll see in the gardens, we work with colors. So this is a more rose garden, pink. And then there's other part of the garden where we have lots more yellow roses or red roses. This part of the castle used to be a chapel that was destroyed in the 19th century. And on the wall, you see the shape of the nave that was destroyed. In order to commemorate it, we constructed this beautiful vegetal nave out of rose and vines. And what's new this year is that we have established a new restaurant. It's a very small restaurant, but quite high-end, very chic. We have a very good chef that works with kitchen garden products, and also you'll see our wildflower gardens. So I hope we can welcome you to taste the beautiful wine of the Loire Valley when the borders are open again. Let's go and see the gardens now. We'll go back in the main courtyard and go in the garden. So we have 14 different gardens, all of them around the fairy tale and fantasy theme. So this one is the secret garden. It's a garden that is inside the castle that you only see once you actually cross the drawbridge. But you'll see there's the kitchen garden that we saw before, and now we're going to go into the orchid. We call it the Orchid of Paradise because it was inspired by Celestial Jerusalem. Celestial Jerusalem that was separated in 4 different parts. One for the Orthodox, one for the Armenians, one for the Jewish, and one for the Christians. So, as you see, the colors are starting to change. We're in September. In France, the colors start to shift at the end of August, but we can have really good weather until November. And then November, December, January is our winter, but nothing compared to Russian winter. That is for sure. Everywhere in the garden you will see little surprise. For example, here you see this little monkey that is resting there. We want people to be surprised by the beauty of the gardens. Here on the left, you see the tower I told you about, the tower of the royal stables. It's really unique because there is not that many fortified stables in France. And here I told you about the beautiful roses, so we still have some reblooming roses. This is a yellow garden. It's a garden that is oriented towards the north, and in order to brighten it, we chose to have yellow colors. My mom is the creator of the garden. Her name is Patricia, and she always thinks that a garden is like a painting, except it evolves with the season. So if you come in April in this garden, you will see daffodils, then you will see roses, then émeraude et émeraude, but always the colors will be the same. It will always be orangey and yellow. So what we like to do also is play with the different ornamental grasses. So you see how the ornamental grasses dialogue with the plants. That's one of our objectives. This is a beautiful rose by David Austin again, called Lady of Shallot. And it's quite special because it changes color. And so on the right we have the orchid. The orchid is a really pleasant place for walking around, for enjoying the shade, or for picnics. The trees you have in these orchids are medlars and cherry trees. And we also have apple trees. It's nice just to enjoy the beauty of the garden. The concept of our garden is a bit different from traditional French gardens that are very rational. Our garden is really contemporary. The first French gardens were inspired by the Italian garden. For example, the Versailles garden. The principal object was to conquer nature, to transform Versailles swamp into a garden. So really it was the control of mankind over nature that was important. But today in the 20th century, the focus is a bit different. We don't want people to control nature, we want to orient it or show some special issue of it, but we don't want to bend it. So that's why our garden is a bit more crazy and not so rational. It is very organized, but maybe you don't perceive it as much. One of the main differences also between traditional French garden is that you're walking on the grass, you're walking amongst the flowers, you can touch the plants. Whereas before it was mostly a garden that was meant to be seen from a balcony. So that's a very different focus and shows very different types of gardens. Let me show you, so here on the right we have a piece of art by Lilian Bourgeat called the Unsold. It's a bit of a joke by Lilian Bourgeat because it's a bit like the cat in boots left some shoes in the garden of Château du Rivo, but it's also a criticism of a consumption society that creates objects that nobody wants to use. Now I'll take you inside of the woods and we will go see our new garden. I was quite excited. It's a wildflower garden. So, let me see. The atmosphere in the forest, in the woods, woods is very different because of the shade. I'm not sure you can perceive it, but the sounds are different. You can hear the birds singing. On the left, we have a labyrinth, a maze that is made of a tree called charm. And on the left here, separating the wood from the gardens, we have very old trees, Brie and If, not really sure about their names in English, but they're typically topiary trees that grow very, very little every year. And they are probably like 300 or 400 years old. But they're quite small. They stay quite small. So, in all this part we have a play area for kids. Families and kids are a big part of our focus here. We want people to enjoy nature with their family and learn from nature. And nobody learns more from nature than kids that can discover, and maybe they can even teach their parents stuff. Over there from a distance you see some bees. So we have beehives, and we are lucky enough to have lots of honey this year, which is a good thing. Here you will see a collection of iris. We have more than 250 different kinds of irises. Those here are blue irises. And we have Sarah. She's an English gardener. Hello, Sarah.
Morning.
We're talking with Russian people today.
Oh,
well, because of our exchange. And so what are you doing?
well, I'm using this French tool called a grelinette, which is really useful, and using it to dig up these irises that have been in the ground for about 4 or 5 years. So it's time for us to divide them because they make these enormous rhizomes like this. So we can divide them pretty much like this.
Okay.
And then we're going to replant them.
Okay. Are you going to use the other part too, or just one part?
No, just this part. Yeah, because we can see here that the roots are really alive. Where on the bit I just threw away, the roots are dead.
Right.
And so we can make a really vigorous iris that should flower really well next year.
Perfect. That's quite exciting.
It's just quite exciting.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Pleasure.
Irises are traditionally used in France for perfume making. But they don't actually use the flowers to make perfume, but they use the rhizome, the roots. So now you'll see, which is our big new thing, our little wild flower garden. So let me tell you a bit about the concept of this garden. The idea between this garden is that wildflowers are sometimes destroyed in agriculture or in gardens, just not because they're bad flowers, it's just because they're not where people want them. Because even a beautiful poppy can be considered a wildflower and be destroyed by the agriculture if it's not in the right place. Or a rose could be considered like a wildflower that's not consumed. So here we have a wildflower garden where we put forward all those wildflowers. And what's quite specific is that all the wildflowers we have here are edible flowers. So we wanted to have a garden with wild edible flowers so that people could come and taste them. So we do a little exhibit where people come and taste them, and we use them for cooking. So for example, we have here this brush that you can eat. It's very beautiful. The sushi you can eat. This one here maybe is less famous. It's the echinacea. You can eat you can eat both actually. You can actually eat the flower and the leaf, and it has a very strong taste that our cook is actually using. He makes espuma with it. All the plants here are beautiful in the plate, but they also have a very nice taste. Especially the one over there, it's called the mauve. and the taste is quite fun. I don't know if you try. Depending on the season, we have different plants blooming here, but all of them you can eat. What's also quite nice in this garden is that you see the shape of the garden. It's a very formal garden, so compared to our other garden, it's formal because we wanted to put forward the wildflowers. And that's a beautiful view on the neighborhood countryside. You can see that we are fortunate enough to be in a very preserved environment around fields. Here corn, and this plant here is called agastache, and it's kind of it has a kind of a minty taste at the end of the bloom right now, but it's a beautiful bloom in August. It's purple, and the bees love it. It has a very strong taste, very peculiar, and it's very nice to use in cooking. Now we'll go back to the garden and finish our tour. I hope you're enjoying it. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to write to us on Facebook or Instagram. We would love to hear more about the art of gardening in Russia, and we are very happy to this partnership. It's the first part of a long-lasting friendship, I hope. Here on the left we have a little annex where people can rest. We really want the people to spend the day, enjoy nature, especially this year with the COVID catastrophe hitting us. People enjoy being outside, they enjoy the importance of nature, and they see nature as a salvation for their body but also for their soul. So that's what we're trying to do here, having a full experience of a beautiful day or a beautiful half day, enjoying the gardens, understanding the history of the castle and of France, and then maybe having lunch in our restaurant or a fine dinner before sleeping inside of the castle. It's a full experience. I'm sure we don't have that many Russian people coming yet because I don't think we are very visible to the Russian visitors, but we hope in the nearby future to welcome you. So don't hesitate, and mostly write to us in English. Russian is not my specialty, but I can try to learn. Here is a beautiful view of the castle inside of an eye. It's a bit like a great eye, the eye of God that you see in Renaissance paintings. That is framing the castle. And you can hear the birds singing. September is not the best season for bird singing. Best season is obviously April, May, where it's a concert of birds and insects. But September is so nice, the lighting is changing. They say that the Loire Valley region is the Garden of France and has the best lighting. Supposedly it's also the place where the French people speak the purest French, because Descartes, Balzac are original from this region. Now I'll show you one of our last gardens. It's one of my favorite and one of the nicest in the season. There's a peacock. The peacocks, we have 5 different ones of them, and they're different colors. This one is the most common one, but it's so beautiful. It's not so beautiful in the season because it's not, his feathers are coming out, but it will come back next year in April, May. Then I'll show you the red garden. So just going into the red garden is beautiful. It's organized a bit like a French traditional garden with the red barons in paradise that are giving structure to the place with a process that is called massification, meaning just there's lots of them. We'll go through this way so that we don't disturb the visitors. We work a lot with the insects, so we have little things to feed the butterflies, so that they can help promote the garden. This is a dahlia. This one of the biggest dahlia is called Dahlia Éole, like the sun. Those penargonium, you can actually eat them too, and they're really good to cover the floor. Here we still have some roses. This garden is also beautiful in April, where we have a collection of tulips, red tulips. This is an amarant, elephant's head, as you can see with the shape. It's very fluffy. Everywhere in the garden there's places where you can sit down and rest. So it's very nice for romantic couples. They can protect themselves and be around nature and isolated from the rest of the visitors. And here we have a very nice view on the castle in spite of the light, with the ornamental grasses, the beautiful blue penargonium. I hope you enjoy. And all those butterflies flying around. It's a treasure for the eyes. And of course the smells, I cannot transmit this through video, but I hope you're enjoying it. Our gardens are beautiful from April to November, and we strive to have an experience that changes. So if you come in April, in May, in June, or July or September, you will see an entirely different garden. Everything is actually in the soil, and we don't work that much in greenhouses, so it's a very modern way of concepting the garden. But always you will see botanic association between plants, for example, that are really aesthetic. So for example, here you have this peculiar dahlia that goes well with the ornamental grasses in behind. And again, we want the visitors to touch, to enjoy, and to smell. So we'll finish here with the castle in the background. I hope you enjoyed the visit, and for me it was a pleasure, and really don't hesitate if you have any questions. We would love to welcome you and further our partnership. Thank you.